So I don't really want to get off task with this particular subject. I really want to focus on the middle pillar and get as much information that I know out to you that you can make it extremely effective as an energetic working. Few things can really beat it. It must become a daily practice of yours, turning you into a natural pillar for both physical and non-physical energy, grounding you and as well as expanding your consciousness all at the same time, as well as placing you within a star chamber that makes it very difficult for things to mess with you, as well as keeping your humanity. These things are essential, and it is definitely part of my tradition, which is a spiritual warrior tradition, which is a hunter's lodge. And all things will become very clear on why I want that to become such a fundamental practice for you. Because where I want this to go, I need you to have that foundation. I need you to be connected and strong. There's been a number of individuals who have emailed me, and I'm not able to email them back. For some reason, YouTube is not letting me do this currently, and so I'm going to give out my direct email. So, because they're important questions and I want to answer them. One of the major ones is, Bearheart, do you work with the Necronomicon? Short answer, yes. However, I need to preface this very quickly and say that the Necronomicon, the tradition of magic that is released, especially in the book, the Necronomicon, I think Simon, the author, did a lot of work with that. It is a fictional book channeled, and in the tradition itself is nonfiction. So I don't know if that was done on purpose, because the entities that are involved are very much real. And the problem that I think people get into when dealing with this is that they don't follow the protocol, and they need to understand that the type of magic that the mad Arab was giving out was a magical tradition that was supposed to be protecting him, but his quest for forbidden or his ability, his desires to speak with things that he was not supposed to speak with, that you were not technically supposed to call, is what finally did him in. So it was a warning as well. If the whole universe is a mind, if everything is quote-unquote mental, then the universe acts as a gigantic mind frame that has a deep, dark, predatory subconscious. When humans, we went through a second unnecessary and, in my mind, criminal genesis. We opened up a part of our psyches that we were not ready to open. And these entities that come from the real dark, predatory subconscious of the universe were able to worm their way through the Herculean mind drift of distance and start to take root in our planet, our consciousness, entities and intelligences that humans were never supposed to come in contact with, or at least so early on. When we were going through this genesis, which reptilians played a massive part of, but there were other races that played a role through greed, through an opportunist mindset. They had to deal now with the fact that other darker, more potentially potent entities were coming through, and now it's sort of like saying that the Civil War was over slavery. It wasn't. Slavery was just something that was used to justify the Civil War. So you had a war of resources and potential slaves, being us and our planet, between reptilian factions and other alien groups that had come down and wanted to establish dominance. Eventually, the side that Marduk and Anu, even though they had their own issues, eventually won. And they had their own cults and their own followings, and thus the system of metaphysics that they taught to their followers to help and aid them and to keep away these darker entities and then reptilian entities as well. It's kind of a blessing and a curse into where it does what it's supposed to do, but unlike the what we would say like Tree of Life, like ceremonial magic, where it's very much a human tradition, this tradition that comes through us via the Necronomicon is not a human tradition. In fact, it's very alien. And the fail-safes for a human using it just aren't there. So if you're going to use the Necronomicon, if you're going to use that type of tradition, you have to follow it to the letter. You have to be so careful. So if it's, if you need to perform purifications, you would better perform them, because when you're dealing with those type of entities, like I term them Transplatonian, and that's what they've been called in my order. They are so strange and so bizarre, and their desires so beyond your comprehension, that if they're lingering in your subconscious, if they're stuck and your thoughts turn to them, that's how they stay. You didn't banish them. That's what I'm saying. You are not exorcising them from your domain. They are still allowed to influence your thought patterns. And what you think about, you will manifest. And they are using you as a direct link to this particular reality in this particular part of the universe, in your human reality. They are linking themselves through your continued dwelling and thoughts. To call them purposely is absolute, complete idiocy. And I've met people who have worked with the system of magic called the Necronomicon, who have done those calls. And they are sociopathic idiots for a reason. That's just how you become it. That type of traditional magic was used to banish them, not to call them. Unfortunately, because people have not been grounded and solid in their work, and have not been as astute as they needed to be, those intelligences have stayed behind and have slowly reworked it to make the Necronomicon and that particular form of magic about them. About calling and making contact with them instead of banishing them or utterly destroying them, which was the original point, and which is why you have entities like Marduk who are so vehemently against them, but at the same time, he himself, not what you necessarily call an extremely moral individual or an entity that particularly cares about that, although given the choice, I would much rather have a relationship with Marduk than the opposite, the alternative. And I think it's also a cultural perspective. I'm going to leave it at that. So if you're going to use the system of magic as the Necronomicon, follow protocol to the letter. Don't guess, don't add, don't mix, don't try to summon spirits that are not part of it. Stick with what is a part of it. It is not a system that is meant to be splayed out and kind of meddled with and then sewn back together and hooked together with duct tape. There is not a forgiveness value to it. if you misuse it, if you are not sure how to use it, you will suffer consequences for it. I'm going to finish this up.